Hi, I'm the Rocky Mountains Dr. Jackson Crawford. I'm an Old Norse specialist teaching at the University of Colorado, previously the University of California, and I'm an Old Norse consultant for film and television, including Disney's Frozen, American Gods Season 2, and some other upcoming projects. In this video, what I want to talk about is a question I'm frequently asked, which is why Old Norse names are spelled so inconsistently, and the implicit question in that is, of course, what's the right way to spell them? Well, part of what you're dealing with there is that in Old Norse, there are different situations where one spelling is appropriate instead of another. Think about the English word raven, which is appropriate if you're talking about one, but ravens, which is appropriate if you're talking about two or more. Neither one is the correct word per se, but each one is correct in a different context. In a similar way, although a more complicated way, Old Norse has multiple forms of different words, and each one will be appropriate in a different context. Let's take the example, probably the Old Norse names that I'm asked about the most, which are the names of Odin's ravens, Huginn and Muninn, roughly the thought and the memory. You'll see these spelled both with two N's and with one N at the end. And in Old Norse, you'll find them both ways. In fact, you'll find them both ways in one stanza. In the poem Grímnismál in the Poeticera, in stanza 20, Odin talks about his ravens saying, Huginn og Muninn fljúga hverjan dag, Jormungrund yfir. Og ek of Huginn að hann aftur komið, en sjómsk meir Munin. You see that Huginn and Munin in the first line end with two N's because they are the subject of the verb fljúga. But in subsequent lines, you see Huginn with one N at the end and Munin with one N at the end because they are objects, right? So Huginn and Munin with two N's fly. I fear for Huginn and I fear for Munin, one N. So what you're seeing there is that Old Norse distinguishes between a nominative and an accusative case. This is the same way that I fly or they fly, but they worry about me, I worry about them. They and them refer to the same thing. I and me refer to the same thing. Just as Huginn, two N's, and Huginn, one N refer to the same thing. But they are appropriate in different grammatical contexts. Now, in a similar way, in Old Norse, many nouns end in an R in the nominative, but they don't end in an R in the other cases. Accusative is just one of the cases, and I'm not going to get into full Old Norse grammar here. But to give you an example, the name of the great hero Sigurdur ends in that R if he is the subject. Sigurdur saw mig, Sigurdur saw me. But if I saw Sigurd, ek saw Sigurd, with that R removed. This also applies sometimes to a second R that you'll see on names like Thor and Ragnar. The second R is there if it's the subject, Thor saw, Thor fought, something like that, but not if it's the object, I saw Thor or I fought Thor. So what happens with translators is some translators don't consider that R or that N that's at the end of the word, if it's the subject or nominative, to be part of the core root of the name. So they remove it. So typically in English translations, you're not going to see that second R, you're not going to see that second N. You're going to see Sigurd or Sigurd instead of Sigurdur, right? You're going to see Odin with one N, not Odin with two N's. So what's correct, Huginn or Hugin? Both can be correct in English. Both are correct in different contexts in Old Norse. Well, I hope this has gone some ways toward answering this question and making it clear why you see both Munin and Huginn with two N's and one N, as well as why you see that R, that N at the end of Old Norse names sometimes, but sometimes not. There's a fairly complicated explanation behind it, but like I said, I hope I've made it somewhat clear. I have other videos on this subject that may help clear up other aspects of this problem. I have a somewhat longer video, somewhat old, called Why Are Norse Names Spelled So Inconsistently? And I have another one called Old Norse How Nouns Work. I will link those in the end screen of this video for those who want to dive a little bit deeper. For now, from beautiful Colorado, I'm wishing you all the best.